affairs. In addition to spearheading Africa's liberation agenda, we have worked tirelessly to unite the continent in order to consolidate our hard-won independence and also accelerate our development by pooling our resources. I assure you that the Foreign Ministry and its mission
Ghana has, since independence, carved a niche for herself in a number of ways. After breaking free from colonialism, Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, became also the torchbearer in a struggle for the total liberation of the entire African continent.
Our independence is meaningless unless it lifts up the total liberation of the African continent.
Ghana, we now have freedom.
The idea of a united Africa was born in Accra when a number of African leaders met in the Ghanaian capital. With inspiration from Dr. Nkrumah and others, the Organization of African Unity (OAU) was formed in 1963 in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa. The precursor to what is now the African Union, the AU, established on July 9, 2002 in South Africa. Ghana's role in the continent's forward march has been key. Ghana was also a founding member of the Non-Aligned Movement (NAM), a member of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States (ACP), and has lived up to their ideals. The formation of the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS) was another step in and building economic and political cooperation and peace in West Africa. Here too, Ghana has been a leader through the decades since ECOWAS was established in 1975. Under the chairmanship of Presidents Jerry Rawlings and John Kufuor, and with Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambers, a Ghanaian, as Secretary General of ECOWAS in the late 90s and 2000s, Ghana's role was key in bringing stability, peace and democracy to Sierra Leone and Liberia after years of chaos and bloodshed. Dr. Chambers has since gone on to head the ACP group of states headquartered in Brussels, served as the UN's Secretary General's representative in Darfur, and now as the representative for West Africa and the Sahel. At both the ACP and ECOWAS, Ghanaians Alhaji Mohamed Mumuni and Ambassador Victor Gbeho became successors after Dr. Chambers. Indeed, Ghana occupies a respectable place in global peace and security. Ghana joined the United Nations on March 8 in 1957, 2 days after independence. Since then, Ghana has contributed more than 80,000 military and police personnel for UN peacekeeping duties, over 30 missions around the world, starting with the Congo in 1960. When civil war broke out in Rwanda in 1994, the UN, under the OAU-brokered Arusha Agreement, created the United Nations Assistance Mission in Rwanda, UNAMIR, to provide security for the smooth implementation of the accord. Ghana contributed more than half of the 5,200 troops that served in Rwanda. When all the countries serving in the operation, Belgium, Tunisia and Bangladesh, withdrew their troops at the onset of the genocide, the Ghanaian soldiers stayed. A Ghanaian, General Henry Anyidoho, was Deputy Force Commander and Chief of Staff of UNAMIR. General Anyidoho also served in international peacekeeping operations in Lebanon, Liberia, Cambodia and Darfur. Ghanaian soldiers have served with distinction in Sierra Leone, Liberia, East Timor, Angola, Côte d'Ivoire, and continue to serve in Somalia, Lebanon, Sudan, Central African Republic, the Gambia and Mali. Indeed, the first commander of the UN Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, when it was established in 1978, was General Emmanuel Erskine, who served for 3 years. In 1999, the UN appointed another Ghanaian, Lieutenant General Seth Obing, to the position. Ghana's involvement in peacekeeping operations across the world led to the establishment in 1998 of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center at Teshi in Accra. It was named after former UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan and has trained thousands in peace operations and peacekeeping.
I, Kofi Annan,
solemnly swear.
solemnly swear.
In December 1996, the late Kofi Annan became the 7th Secretary-General of the World Body. Before then, Mr. Annan had served as UN Under-Secretary-General for Peacekeeping Operations. It was under his tenure that UN peacekeeping operations grew in size and scope, with a total deployment of almost 70,000 military and civilian personnel from 77 countries. One of Mr. Annan's legacies to Africa and the world was the introduction in 2005 of responsibility to protect, a global principle under which external powers could intervene in the internal affairs of other countries to prevent genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity. Other illustrious Ghanaian diplomats who have unfurled Ghana's flag in the international arena include Dr. Alex Kwesi-Nsaki, the first diplomat from a black African nation to serve as president of the UN General Assembly. Another Ghanaian achievement in world peace is the effort of Nana Akufo-Addo, then Ghana's foreign minister under the Kufuor administration. Nana Akufo-Addo, now Ghana's president, chaired a high-level Security Council meeting in August 2006 that took the decision to halt Israel's incursions in Lebanon. Given that the Security Council is one of the highest organs of the UN, and also that the decision to elect Nana Akufo-Addo to chair a Security Council session did not attract any dissenting voices, speaks volumes of Ghana's image as promoter of international peace and security. Mrs. Mary Chinri Hesse was the first African woman resident coordinator of the United Nations system and resident representative of the UNDP to many countries including Sierra Leone, Tanzania, the Seychelles and Uganda. Dr. Robert Kwekwata Gardner and Dr. K.Y. Amwako both served as the executive secretaries of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Ambassador Kenneth Darcy was the Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development UNCTAD between 1986 and 1994. Ambassador Kwesi Kwartey, a career diplomat and former Deputy Foreign Minister, is currently Deputy Chairman of the AU Commission. Ms. Hannah Tete is now Director General of the United Nations Office in Nairobi, Kenya. Ambassador Kebi Asante was one of the 10 pioneer Foreign Service officers who blazed the trail in establishing Ghana's foreign policy credentials and ensured that the civil service machinery worked efficiently to support the political leaders. In 1979, Mrs. Gloria Nikoi became the first female foreign minister. She was appointed by military head of state General Ignatius Kutu Champong, who curiously never traveled outside Ghana in his 6 years in office except for a day's trip to neighboring Togo. The visit was only announced on the evening news after his safe return home. Ghana's heads of state in the Fourth Republic have consolidated the nation's cardinal foreign policy of good neighborliness and regional leadership. Between 1992 and 2000, former President Rawlings served for 2 terms as chairman of ECOWAS in the heat of the Liberian Civil War and played a notable role in peace efforts in then war-torn Liberia, which led to the end of the crisis that claimed about 250,000 lives and displaced millions. He was also ECOWAS chairman for 2 terms and saw to the successful negotiations that brought peace and post-war reconstruction to Sierra Leone, Côte d'Ivoire and Liberia. Both Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and her successor, Mr. George Oppong-Weah, conferred upon former President J.A. Kufuor Liberia's highest state honor. In 2007, violence broke out in Kenya following disputed elections. Hundreds were killed in a mayhem that threatened to destabilize the East African country and the sub-region. It took the wisdom of President Kufuor, chairman of the African Union at the time, to appoint Kofi Annan, who had then retired as Secretary General of the UN, to intervene and mediate for a government of national unity and pull Kenya from an otherwise apocalyptic brink. As ECOWAS chairman in 2014, President Mahama worked to restore democratic order in Burkina Faso after long-term leader Blaise Compaoré was ousted following 27 days of civil unrest. President John Mahama was part of a delegation led by the then ECOWAS chairperson, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia, to meet with and persuade President Yahya Jammeh to hand power over to Mr. Adama Barrow. President Akufo-Addo assumed office when a looming political crisis in the Gambia was at its peak. The tension was due to President Jammeh's reluctance to hand over power to the president-elect. President Akufo-Addo deployed Ghanaian troops to ensure a smooth and peaceful transfer of power in the Gambia. He and President Mahama deployed some of Ghana's best legal brains and maritime specialists and leveraged their own diplomatic skills to resolve a major maritime dispute over oil-rich waters with neighboring Côte d'Ivoire to the mutual satisfaction of the 2 countries following their acceptance of a ruling by the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea. President Akufo-Addo was also commended at the 54th ECOWAS Ordinary Session in December 2018 for his policy proposals aimed at building trust and confidence amongst political actors in Togo, where the government and opposition parties are jostling for power. Since September 2017, President Akufo-Addo has made various attempts to restore peace in the former French colony. Since 2001, Ghana has adopted economic diplomacy as the main plank of her international relations. This involves using a range of diplomatic activities and tools to influence investment, trade, aid, and other economic outcomes for Ghana's benefit. Ghana became a beacon since independence for people of African descent and civil rights leaders globally. Inspired by Dr. Nkrumah's Pan-Africanist ideas, many historical figures made what they considered to be a pilgrimage to Ghana. Among them, Dr. Martin Luther King and his wife, Coretta Scott King, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and trumpeter Louis Armstrong. Ghana also provided support for the liberation struggles of other colonies to catalyze their own liberation. Ghana became a home for exiled African liberation fighters from all over the continent, particularly Southern Africa. Even today, Ghana continues to attract inspirational figures from the African diaspora. as evidenced by a group of celebrities from the US, Britain, and the Caribbean who chose to spend Christmas in Ghana in 2018. At the bilateral level, Ghana has hosted leaders from across the globe. In 1961, President Kwame Nkrumah received the then Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, just a year after Ghana became a republic. In November 1999, the Queen returned and was hosted by President Rawlings. In March 1998, President Bill Clinton of the United States paid a historic visit to Ghana.
What Akwaba really means. Thank you. Thank you so much.
In January 2008, President J. Akufo received US President George Walker Bush. President Bush's successor Barack Obama also visited Ghana in July 2009, hosted by President John Evans Atta Mills. Mr. Obama was the first US president to deliver a speech in Ghana's parliament. Under President Akufo-Addo, Ghana continues to receive world leaders who recognize the country's place in the affairs of Africa and the world. Notable among them are the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President Emmanuel Macron, the Queen of Denmark, and several European leaders, US First Lady Melania Trump, Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, and African leaders including Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari and Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara. The importance of Ghana's place in the world is without question. However, there is a gap that needs desperately to be filled. Despite the countless number of civil society advocacy groups, Ghana does not have a dedicated think tank on international relations. This is the void that the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana, CFR, is here to rectify.
We'll be concerned with foreign policy formulation and implementation in Ghana, but naturally that involves ECOWAS, that involves the AU, that involves the international space, because Africa's engagement with the international world has been impacted by events which were not controlled by Africa. I mean, colonialism, Cold War, globalization. So Africa's response to its engagement with the international community to make Africa have a prominent voice is part of our aim.
Talking about what the Council stands for, many questions on the implementation of the country's policy and events across the continent have been left unanswered.
We're also interested in organizing conferences and seminars where world-renowned personalities will address matters of foreign policy and where the public, as a key actor in foreign policy formulation, can engage them. And we have big events coming up in March, April, May, June, where we'll have very high-profile personalities speaking to the public on foreign policy matters.
With the coming together of diplomats, lawyers, academics, journalists, international relations and military and security experts, the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana is here to add to the depth of existing knowledge, expertly analyze events, facilitate understanding and support decision makers as they steer Ghana's relations with the rest of the global community in an ever-changing world. Long live the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana. Long live Ghana. In 2019, Ghana established her first policy think tank dedicated to foreign policy and international affairs. The Council on Foreign Relations CFR Ghana, an independent, private, non-partisan and non-profit institution, was officially inaugurated on February 26, 2019 by President Akufo-Addo. But it was a dream brought to fruition by a handful of like-minded individuals led chiefly by the journalist and diplomat Ambassador Cabral Blay Amihie, and diplomacy specialist and public service veteran, Ambassador D.K. Osei, who is the founding president of CFR Ghana. Founding members spent many hours on weekends huddling and haggling over the fine points of corporate governance, the law, diplomacy, communications and public relations, and even the aesthetics and nuances of typefaces, fonts, and logos. Despite its 2019 birth, CFR Ghana's conception occurred much earlier, with its official registration at the Registrar General's on February 23, 2011. After 8 years, during which no foreign affairs think tank emerged among civil society organizations, its originators decided this was an idea whose time had come.
We find ourselves in a world confronted by a multiplicity of challenges. We continue to witness a recession, a regrettable recession, in the spirit of multilateralism, together simultaneously with the growth of globalization and an upsurge in the digital revolution. These challenges constitute opportunities and risks, which have the potential to revolutionize foreign policy and international relations. In light of these, we need a strong, reputable policy think tank to ensure that stakeholders are well informed to enable them contribute meaningfully to the defense and promotion of the national interest. I would therefore expect CFR Ghana to assist us to keep our eyes on the ball in a manner that allows us to deal with critical challenges at home, on the continent, and amongst multilateral institutions. Not only are you expected to be facilitators in improving policy making and execution, but you're also to act as agents of social change.
In the last 24 months, the CFR Ghana has struck a formidable partnership with both state and non-state actors to deepen public discourse, share knowledge about national, regional, continental and global conversations, and make inputs.
Our aim
President of the Council on Foreign Relations, Ghana, Ambassador D.K. Osei, Your Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, Honorable Shirley Ayoko Botwe, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, distinguished honorary members, executives and members of the Council on Foreign Relations, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Akufo-Addo. I'm a director for this program and a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. And I'm pleased to welcome all of you this morning to this very special event. A lecture by our special guest, the President of the Republic of Ghana, himself a former foreign minister and distinguished diplomat. And of course, this is to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the establishment of the Council on Foreign Relations, Ghana, an independent, non-governmental and non-profit think tank. This lecture caps the Council's distinguished guest lecture series over the past 5 years, established to tap the insights and knowledge of distinguished diplomats, statesmen, global leaders, academics, and other thought leaders on a variety of relevant topics and themes. But today's is particularly special as it's the first by a president. So we thank you, Your Excellency. I should turn now to Ambassador D.K. Osei, President of the Council, for his opening remarks and invitation to our very distinguished speaker.
Mr. President, Madam Foreign Minister, senior fellows of the Council on Foreign Relations present, Uncle Hackman and Professor Kwenyehia, Honorable Ministers of State, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Council, I wish to welcome you to the climax of our 5th anniversary celebration. We are particularly grateful to His Excellency the President for accepting to be our special guest of honor and to deliver a speech on this occasion. Mr. President, you recall that 5 years ago, you charged us to play a role in contributing to the formulation of foreign policy and as a result, the formulation of the improvement of our development. On the occasion of our 5th anniversary, we acknowledge the very complex nature of events occurring in the world currently. It looks almost cyclical because suddenly the world appears in turmoil. Populism is gaining ground. Multilateralism is receding. Poverty is on the increase. The environment is not making life easy for us. And the debt burden, it's having an impact on a number of countries, including Kenya, Nigeria, etc., etc. The existing international governance architecture appears not to be producing the results for peace and security as we had envisaged after the post-World War II when the structures were put in place. In fact, Mr. President, you've often complained about the existing international financial architecture, which does not appear to be sufficiently responsive to the needs of development. In fact, you've recently complained about the inefficiencies of rating agencies. In other words, the existing development aid architecture itself appears not to be responding to the problems of our time. And I suspect that that is why the Summit of the Future has become such an urgent matter for all of us. And that's why we will be meeting on the 24th of September in New York. So, President, you will then appreciate why we thought you should be the speaker for this occasion. The main reason we thought was that all these agenda items on the platform of the Summit of the Future were very similar to the ones which were raised in Ezinui in 2005. I recall that under your leadership, you led a response of the continent to the then existing foreign policy challenges to Africa. On that occasion, Mr. President, not only did you talk about reforms of the UN, but all these matters of environment, of insufficient responses to global governance, a weakened international financial, etc., etc. And you eloquently represented Africa to the Security Council, and in a way, we can call it the first major Africa's response to contemporary foreign policy challenges. So as we go to New York, Mr. President, we thought perhaps this would be another occasion for leaders of Africa to respond to some of the matters that will be before our plate in September. And we have no doubt, Mr. President, that once again, you'll be showing that leadership. And we're once again very grateful to you for agreeing to be our guest speaker. Mr. President, thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, your audience, the President of the Republic of Ghana, and the distinguished speaker.
Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Senior Advisor to the President, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of State, and I see former ministers and deputy ministers here as well, Members of Parliament, Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, the President, Vice President, and Executive Board members of the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana, spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, Chief Director and officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Chairperson of the Council of Elders of the ruling New Patriotic Party, members of the Diplomatic Corps, fellow Ghanaians, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to speak to you on this memorable occasion, marking the 5th anniversary of the establishment of this esteemed council. At the onset, let me extend my gratitude to the Council of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Relations Ghana, under the leadership of its brilliant, effervescent diplomat and public servant, Ambassador D.K. Osei, for its noteworthy achievements in its brief history over the past 5 years. His dedication to fostering dialogue, promoting understanding, and shaping informed policies have been very beneficial to our nation and the African continent at large. Its efforts have not only helped reinforce Ghana's position on the global stage, but have also helped address issues that affect our development and international relations. On behalf of the government and the people of Ghana, I extend our sincere appreciation for its invaluable contributions. As we gather here today to celebrate this significant milestone, we turn our attention to a theme of paramount importance: the limits of the current development cooperation framework for Africa's transformation. The theme of the speech is timely and relevant as it compels us to examine the existing development cooperation frameworks and their efficacy in driving Africa's transformation. It is an invitation to reflect on the successes, challenges, and opportunities that lie ahead as we strive to achieve sustainable and inclusive development for the peoples of our continent. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past few decades, since the end of colonialism, Africa has made remarkable strides in various sectors, such as agriculture, education, health, infrastructure development, and economic growth. The continent has witnessed substantial improvements in the battle against poverty, improvements, increased access to education, and advancements in healthcare delivery. There can be little doubt that these achievements have been made possible in part by the support of international development partners and the implementation of various development cooperation frameworks. However, despite these gains, Africa continues to face numerous challenges that hinder her prospects for substantial transformation. High levels of poverty, inequality, unemployment, and underdeveloped infrastructure persist in many parts of the continent. The COVID-19 pandemic and the aftermath of Russia's invasion of Ukraine have further exacerbated these challenges, exposing the vulnerabilities of our health systems, economies, and social structures. While development cooperation has had a somewhat positive impact on Africa's development efforts, we should acknowledge the limitations of the current framework. These limitations must be dealt with if we are to achieve the transformative change to which Africa aspires. One of the grave limitations of the current development cooperation framework is the dependency on external aid. While aid has helped meet some immediate needs and supported various development projects, it has also created a dependency syndrome that undermines domestic ownership and self-reliance. Over-reliance on aid weakens the capacity of African governments to generate and mobilize domestic resources, ultimately hindering sustainable development. To overcome this challenge, we need to prioritize strategies that stimulate economic self-sufficiency and reduce dependency on external aid. This entails amplifying domestic resource mobilization, nurturing entrepreneurship, and creating an enabling environment for indigenous private sector investment. By building resilient economies and solidifying domestic capacities, especially those of tax collection agencies, we can reduce dependency on aid and pave the way for sustainable development. This process of prioritization has taken on even greater urgency because of the emerging geopolitical climate in many nations of the Western world, where populist governments and rhetoric, some with unmistakably racist undertones, are overtly attacking traditional aid arrangements. Indeed, in several countries, aid budgets are being drastically reduced. Ladies and gentlemen, another limitation of the current development cooperation framework is the fragmentation of aid efforts. The multiplicity of donors, each with their own priorities, we can enrich the sustainability and impact of development cooperation. Good governance and strong institutions are fundamental to sustainable development. However, the current development cooperation framework often pays insufficient attention to governance and institutional development. Weak governance structures, corruption, and lack of accountability undermine development efforts and hinder progress. To overcome this challenge, we should prioritize government reforms and institutional development, democratic institutions, promoting transparency and accountability, and building the capacity of public institutions. By deepening governance and institutional frameworks, we can create an enabling environment for sustainable development and ensure that development gains are equitably distributed. The urgent need to give unequivocal support for the growth of democratic institutions and consolidation of the rule of law in Africa's governance has to be an inescapable part of development cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on the limitations of the current development cooperation framework, it is clear that a new paradigm is needed to drive Africa's transformation. This new paradigm must be centered on the principles of partnership, mutual accountability, sustainability, ownership, and the propagation of democracy. Hence the irresistible appeal of the call to build a Ghana beyond aid. Development cooperation should be based on genuine partnerships that recognize the mutual interests and shared responsibilities of all stakeholders. This requires a shift from donor-recipient relations to partnerships that are based on mutual respect, trust, and collaboration. African countries should take the lead in defining their development priorities and shaping the agenda for cooperation. Development partners, in turn, should support these priorities and align their efforts with national development perspectives. Mutual accountability is fundamental for effective development cooperation. This means that both African governments and development partners must be accountable for the commitments they make and the results they achieve. Transparent monitoring and evaluation mechanisms should be put in place to track progress and ensure that development interventions are delivering tangible outcomes. By promoting mutual accountability, we can heighten the effectiveness and impact of development cooperation. Sustainability must be at the core of development cooperation with a focus on long-term sustainable solutions that tackle the root causes of underdevelopment and promote inclusive growth. It also necessitates the integration of environmental sustainability into development planning and implementation. By emphasizing sustainability, we can ensure that development gains are resilient and enduring. An important component of the new paradigm for development cooperation has to be the operation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, the AfcFTA agreement. The AfcFTA agreement represents a bold and transformative initiative aimed at accelerating inter-African trade, promoting industrialization, and accelerating economic integration across the continent. As we explore the limits of the current development cooperation framework, we should recognize the ability of the AfcFTA agreement to ameliorate some of these limitations and drive Africa's transformation. The AfcFTA agreement seeks to create a single market for goods and services encompassing 54 countries and over 1.3 billion people. By reducing trade barriers, harmonizing regulations, and facilitating the free movement of goods and services, the AfcFTA agreement has the capacity to boost immensely intra-African trade. According to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, quote, intra-African trade could be 34% higher in 2045 than without the AfcFTA in the same year, unquote. Enhanced economic integration can lead to economies of scale, increased competitiveness, and greater market access for African businesses. As I have already stated, one of the serious challenges facing Africa is the reliance of our economies on the export of raw materials with little value addition. The AfcFTA agreement provides an opportunity to shift towards industrialization and value addition by creating a larger market for manufactured goods. By promoting regional value chains and encouraging investment in manufacturing and processing industries, the AfcFTA agreement can drive industrialization and create decent jobs for Africa's growing population. The establishment of a continental free trade area should magnify Africa's attractiveness as a valuable investment destination. By creating a more predictable and stable business environment, the implementation of the AfcFTA agreement can attract both domestic and foreign investment. Furthermore, increased competition and market access can advance innovation and entrepreneurship, driving economic growth and development. Small and medium-scale enterprises, SMEs, play an important role in Africa's economies, contributing considerably to employment and income generation. According to the Ghana Statistical Services, SMEs constitute some 92% of businesses in Ghana and contribute some 70% to the country's GDP. This impressive contribution is a testament to the entrepreneurial spirit of Ghanaians. However, SMEs often face challenges related to market access, financing, and regulatory constraints. The AfcFTA can provide new opportunities for SMEs by expanding their market reach and reducing trade barriers. By supporting SMEs, we can promote inclusive growth and ensure that the benefits of economic integration are widely shared. A few weeks ago, I set up the 8.2 billion SME Growth and Opportunity Program to provide targeted financing solutions and technical assistance to small and medium-scale enterprises in Ghana. This initiative is an important step towards creating a viable SME ecosystem that will empower SME businesses with high growth potential to scale up and create impact across their communities. The program, coordinated by the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Trade and Industry, will be implemented by agencies such as the Ghana Enterprises Agency, the Ghana Exim Bank, and the Development Bank Ghana. Together, these institutions will offer financial support, capacity building, and tailored interventions designed to help SMEs overcome the traditional barriers to growth, such as limited access to financing and markets. The ultimate goal of the SME Go program is to encourage development of SME champions capable of competing globally, driving innovation, and contributing to the economic transformation of Ghana. The story of Casapreco Company Limited, a homegrown beverage company that started as a small business and has now become a household name not only in Ghana but also across the entire African continent, is a pregnant one to all and sundry. Fortunately, the program has also attracted other additional funds, like the $400 million United States dollar assistance that the International Finance Corporation, IFC, has agreed to bolster it. The AfcFTA agreement should facilitate the development of regional value chains by promoting the integration of productive processes across different countries. This can augment productivity, reduce costs, and improve the competitiveness of African products in global markets. By developing regional value chains, we can create more resilient economies that are less dependent on external markets and better positioned to withstand global shocks. The AfcFTA agreement provides an opportunity to remedy trade imbalances within the continent and promote more equitable development. By encouraging the development of regional infrastructure, harmonizing trade policies, and taking out non-tariff barriers, the AfcFTA agreement can promote balanced economic growth across different regions. This can help to reduce disparities and ensure that African countries benefit from increased trade and economic integration. Ladies and gentlemen, as we look to the future, we have to recognize the role of technology and innovation in driving Africa's transformation. The digital revolution presents unprecedented opportunities for accelerating development, improving service delivery, and intensifying economic competitiveness. However, it also poses challenges that must be mitigated to ensure that the benefits of technology are equitably distributed. To harness the promise of technology, we have to invest in digital infrastructure through the expansion of broadband connectivity, improving access to information and communication technologies, and developing digital skills. By bridging the digital divide, we can ensure that all Africans have access to the tools and resources needed to participate in the digital economy. Underlying the digitalization agenda of my government, which comprises a robust national identification system, digital property addresses system, paperless port system, e-justice system, pensions and insurance data, a digitized line registry, and mobile money interoperability system is the overarching objective to improve transparency, accountability, and efficiency in the public sector. A digitized environment ultimately helps to eliminate and prevent corruption in various institutions and agencies. Innovation and entrepreneurship are key drivers of economic growth and development. By creating an enabling environment for startups and supporting innovation ecosystems, we can promote the development of new technologies and business models that solve local challenges by providing access to finance, mentorship, and training for young entrepreneurs and innovators. Digital technologies can improve the efficiency and transparency of public service delivery. By adopting e-government solutions, we can streamline administrative processes, reduce corruption, and complement citizen engagement with the implementation of digital platforms for service delivery, improving data management, and promoting open government initiatives. As we embrace digital technologies, we should pay attention to cybersecurity and data protection concerns by developing robust legal and regulatory frameworks, upgrading cybersecurity infrastructure, and promoting awareness of digital risks. By safeguarding digital assets and ensuring the privacy of personal data, we can build trust in digital systems and protect against cyber threats. Ladies and gentlemen, access to education and human capital development are fundamental to our transformation as a continent. A well-educated and skilled workforce is indispensable for driving innovation, productivity, and economic growth. However, a number of challenges remain in ensuring access to quality education and training for all Africans. Access to quality education is, in my view, a fundamental right and a driver of development. To achieve this, it is essential to invest in educational infrastructure, provide adequate resources, and ensure that all children, regardless of their background, have access to quality education through the removal of barriers to education such as poverty, gender inequality, and geographic disparities. One of the cornerstone initiatives of my administration has been the implementation of the free senior high school policy, launched in September 2017 in my first year in office. From the initial annual enrollment of 422,946 in 2017. Some 503,000 children entered high school this year, the highest ever enrollment of children into senior high school in a single year in our history, with 5.57 million children having so far benefited from the free SHS policy since it was instituted in September 2017. This means that, in effect, we've been able to catch and retain the annual 100,000 dropouts within the educational system, which was the dire situation prior to the coming into force of the free SHS policy. Free SHS is also emphasizing the study of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the so-called STEM subjects. The quality of education has improved, evident in the 2023 WACC results being the best in the history of the examination. The considerable budgetary allocation on education within the period, totaling some 12.8 billion cedis, amply illustrate the sheer determination of the Akufo-Addo government to ensure that education becomes a catalyst around which the transformation of the nation revolves. Technical and vocational education and training are decisive for bridging skills gaps and promoting employability. By extending TVET programs and aligning them with labor market needs, we can equip young people with the skills needed for the jobs of the future. This includes promoting partnerships between educational institutions and industry, providing apprenticeships, and stressing on career guidance. In a rapidly changing world, lifelong learning and continuous skills development are paramount. We should create opportunities for individuals to update their skills and knowledge throughout their lives. By promoting adult education, professional development, and digital literacy programs, we can ensure that all Africans are equipped to thrive in dynamic economies. A healthy population is pivotal for sustainable development. However, many African countries face challenges related to health systems capacity, access to health care, and the burden of diseases. Building up the capacity of health systems is crucial for improving health outcomes and building resilience against health threats. Indeed, my administration, since 2017, has made remarkable strides in healthcare delivery, investing heavily in infrastructure and completing numerous regional and district hospitals. The ambitious Agenda 111 initiative aims to construct 111 district hospitals and regional facilities at an estimated cost of $1.7 billion United States dollars. Ongoing projects at various levels of completion have been initiated. Substantial financial investments in the health sector to the tune of some 33 billion Ghana cedis and the recruitment of some 202,000 medical personnel have been made in the 7.5 years of my administration. The National Health Insurance Scheme's active mentorship has since 2016 increased by 69%, and renewing membership is now much easier via mobile telephony. We have also assimilated one of the great lessons of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is the necessity to be self-reliant in the production of vaccines, which has led to the establishment by statute of the National Vaccine Institute to lead the process for the domestic production of vaccines. Investing in health infrastructure and the health workforce is critical for improving healthcare delivery. Building and upgrading healthcare facilities, ensuring the availability of medical supplies and equipment, and training retaining healthcare professionals are of the utmost necessity. By bolstering health systems, we can improve access to quality healthcare and rectify health disparities. Primary health care and preventive services serve as foundations to promoting health and preventing diseases. By prioritizing primary health care, we can bring to the fore health issues at the community level and reduce the burden on tertiary care facilities. We can achieve through immunization, maternal and child health, nutrition, and health education. Communicable and non-communicable diseases pose considerable health challenges in Africa. Efforts to eliminate these diseases must be integrated and comprehensive, shoring up disease surveillance and response systems, promoting healthy lifestyles, and ensuring access to treatment and care for all individuals are paramount to this effort. Development cooperation will not impart any value in circumstances where there's no political stability or national security. The present situation in the ECOWAS region of West Africa, with a fragmented ECOWAS, a new so-called alliance of Sahelian states of 3 ECOWAS member states, the persisting terrorist insurgency, whose epicenter has shifted from Mali to Burkina Faso, the southward spread of the terrorist insurgency, the apparent reduction of French influence, the growing involvement of Russia in the affairs of the community, paints an unattractive picture of instability and uncertainty that will obviously have an adverse impact on the development investment aspirations of the region. Ghana, an oasis of democracy and stability in this troubled region, has an important role to play in its own self-interest, not only in stabilizing the region, but also in contributing the process of restoring democracy in the entire ECOWAS space. Our security arrangements should firstly protect Ghana's sovereignty and security, which has so far been excellently done. And then secondly, should assist in the organization of regional security, such as participation in the impending ECOWAS standby force. I have little doubt that the prior existence of the force would have afforded appreciable deterrence to the spread of the insurgency, which brought the subsequent coups in its wake. But as the maxim has it, better late than never. In order to give strong support to the process of redefinition of development cooperation, it is essential that we, as a matter of utmost necessity, stress the importance of reforming global governance institutions to align better with the evolving needs and aspirations of Africa and other developing regions. First and foremost, reforms to the world's financial architecture are imperative. Existing global financial systems often marginalize the voices of developing countries, leaving them vulnerable to decisions made by institutions where they have little influence. This inequitable structure perpetuates global inequalities and hinders sustainable development, especially in Africa. We should advocate for a more inclusive and fairer financial system that provides all nations with an equitable platform to influence global economic policies, thus enabling a more balanced and just global economic order. Secondly, the recent proposal by Ghana for each member of the African Union to deposit 30% of their gross reserves in Africa's multilateral development banks, rather than allowing them to lie passively in foreign banks, where they often attract negative interest rates, represents a visionary and transformative step towards financial autonomy and economic resilience for Africa. This initiative aims to strengthen the financial capacity of Africa's multilateral development banks, enabling them to provide more funds for Africa's development, and thereby allowing the continent to build a more robust economic buffer against global financial shocks. By pooling greater resources in Africa's multilateral development banks, Africa can reduce her dependency on external financial institutions and guarantee greater economic cooperation and solidarity among her nations. This bold proposal underscores the need for innovative homegrown solutions that empower Africa to chart her own path towards sustainable development and economic independence. Lastly, the reform of the United Nations Security Council, as espoused by the Ezulwini Consensus, which represents the common African position on UN reform, is long overdue. I had the great privilege, as Ghana's foreign minister in the government of the outstanding Ghanaian statesman, the second president of the Fourth Republic, His Excellency John Addo Akufo, of chairing in 2005 the proceedings of AU foreign ministers at Ezulwini in Eswatini, which drafted the consensus. The current configuration of the Security Council continues to reflect the realities of the post-Second World War world, but does not take into account the changed geopolitical realities of the modern world. Africa, home to a rapidly growing population and a significant portion of the world's natural resources, remains severely underrepresented in this critical global body, which is responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. The Ezulwini Consensus, which calls for greater African representation in both permanent and non-permanent categories of the Security Council, should be pursued vigorously. Ensuring that Africa has a stronger voice in global peace and security matters is not just a matter of fairness, but it is also a necessity for the legitimacy and effectiveness of the United Nations in maintaining global peace and security. I'm happy to note that Antonio Guterres, the far-sighted Secretary General of the United Nations, has in recent days added the considerable weight of his voice to those of US President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron in support of this goal. In conclusion, as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Constitution of the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana, we should seize this opportunity to reflect on the limitations of the current development cooperation framework and chart a new path for Africa's transformation. There are stark facts that must inspire this transformation. By 2050, 1 in every 4 persons on the planet will be an African. Africa's population will have reached 2.5 billion, and the youth, that is 18 years to 40 years, will comprise 35% of that figure. If by then we have not managed to establish functioning, productive economies that can generate jobs for this youthful population, it is obvious that we will condemn the continent to unimaginable crises and upheavals. We have to do everything possible to avoid such a fate. The Council has played a central role in shaping informed policies and facilitating dialogue on important issues, and I'm confident that it will continue to be a driving force in advancing Ghana's and Africa's and contributing to global peace and prosperity. Let us work together to build a new paradigm for development cooperation that is based on partnership, mutual accountability, sustainability, ownership, and the propagation of democracy. By tackling the limitations of the current framework and embracing a more holistic and inclusive approach, we can achieve the transformative change to which Africa aspires. The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement represents a central component of this new paradigm, offering immense possibilities to drive economic integration, industrialization, and inclusive growth. Furthermore, we must leverage the power of technology and innovation and invest in education and human capital development and boost health systems to ensure sustainable and inclusive development. Together, we can build a prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable future for the peoples of our continent. May God continue to bless the Council on Foreign Relations, Ghana, and us all. And may God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention. And apologize for this long speech.
Mr. President, we thank you for your absolutely thought-provoking remarks. Ambassador Osei informs me that he's adamant that you, Mr. President, should be entitled to the last word and will therefore not offer the usual closing remarks. I think that he realizes that there doesn't appear to be much vocabulary remaining after you're done speaking. This lecture will feature in the next edition of the Council's flagship compilation, which will also capture the last lecture before today's, that is, and which was given by the Honorable Shirley Ayokobuchi, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, and candidate for Commonwealth Secretary General. Along with copies of the Council's journal, the Baobab, copies of the maiden edition of the Distinguished Lecture Series are available outside the door in the foyer. And I encourage you to please get a copy. Those featured in that one include the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina J. Mohammed, who spoke on the future of multilateralism, Professor Wole Soyinka on Afro-pessimism versus Aburi optimism. You would recall that Aburi was a venue of the peace talks after the war in Biafra. Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers spoke on building partnerships for peace in Africa. And Ambassador Ahmedou Ould Abdallah on the implications of the war in Ukraine or in West Africa. And there's a lot more besides. So kindly do get a copy if you don't have one already. I shall now invite Lady Anne Esuman, Council and Executive Member of the Council on Foreign Relations, to formally offer the Council's thanks to the President and to yourselves, please.
President of the Republic, on behalf of the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana, we would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation for the lecture this afternoon. Your lecture could easily serve as the first draft for the Accra Consensus at the Summit for the Future scheduled for New York next month. We could not have chosen a better guest lecturer to crown the occasion of our 5th anniversary than our very own former Foreign Minister and our current President of the Republic, who also inaugurated the Council. We wish to also take the opportunity to thank the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, soon to be called, hopefully, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. For all her support to the Council since its inauguration. To you, our invited guests, and the institutions which have supported our journey so far, we say a very big thank you. Thank you all for your presence today and for your support.
I'd like to invite Your Excellency the President and members of the Executive Council of the Council to please join us for a photo opportunity outside, and also for something to bite, little reception in the foyer. Thank you very much.
Haba. Oh. Haba. Kabasho. 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 No me yesi machara yesi macharo mewe fiti tanya fawuji yesi mi atu me yendu baby mewo biare yota na wana kumam mogopado yamba pese minkum nyanka hu etim na kaminyina yamfanka hu yampa jentum yanju no vi yentem ha kura